So far in this series of Earthrise, I've been meeting some of the business leaders showing the way to a sustainable economy and campaigners turning to the law to force political and corporate action on the climate and nature crises. But can policy and economics alone ensure a future for life on Earth? In this final programme, I'm exploring how the world's faiths are mobilising hearts and souls in a mission to repair our broken relationship with the planet. Summer solstice, the longest day of the year. A time venerated by members of the Druid order, a modern interpretation of the ancient ruling priesthood of Celtic Britain. Each year they gather here at Stonehenge, a monument dating back some 4,500 years. Its exact purpose is a mystery, though some say the standing stones align with the movements of the sun and moon, marking the seasons.
Everything connects to nature. We study the laws of nature so that we can conform to them. Most catastrophes are all about not adhering to the laws of nature and trying to bend them, or thinking that you can bend them.
Our forefathers discovered the existence of divine purpose within all that is. They found no disorder within nature. Arise, O sun, let the darkness of night fade before the beams of thy glorious light.
It feels very, very timeless here. And of course, over the years since Stonehenge was built, we've industrialised, we've urbanised, and we've really lost that connection to nature, which is so fundamental to our ancestors. And perhaps we all need a chance to reconnect again and to rebuild that sacred bond.
"60 kilometres to the west of Stonehenge is another place that's been used for worship since ancient times. Now it is a Christian church. Anglican lay preacher Martin Palmer is leading an unusual ceremony.
In the Christian tradition, when somebody dies, you ring the death knell for them. This time, we are going to ring the bell for the species that we have driven into extinction. So as you hear the names, let us mourn that we no longer will ever see these creatures that were our companions on this planet, beloved by God, and begin to think, what is it that I am going to do differently?
The Capricorn, rabbit, rat. The broad-cheeked, hopping mouse. The Christmas Island pipistrel.
We need to pray that we're going to change in time. And the way that we will change is because we come to somewhere like this and we remember that we're part of something so much bigger than just us and then nature. But we're nature. The Pinta Island tortoise. You've got to touch hearts and souls. People change because there is a link that is personal. The Navassa rhinoceros iguana.
Services like this are part of an increasing environmental awareness within the faiths.
There are now at least 1 billion people involved in religious projects with their local synagogue, temple, mosque, chapel, finding a way to feel that the future is not hopeless. Because people are not motivated by fear. They are motivated by awareness, by shock, and then by the promise that they can do something.
And motivation is needed now more than ever, including here in Britain. It may look green and pleasant, but decades of intensive agriculture and development have made it one of the world's most nature-depleted countries. But there are some unusual havens for threatened wildlife. The country's 20,000 graveyards. And Christian communities are waking up to their importance for protecting nature. At St Michael's Church in Wallingford, a nature trail is helping children and adults alike to learn about their environment.
Where did you find him?
In the grass.
In the grass. Wow, look at him.
How fantastic.
This is the last day of a fortnight-long nationwide survey called Churches Count on Nature, one of a number of schemes encouraging communities to embrace green issues.
You can have a look with your magnifying glass again.
You see it?
You see it?
We have a particular view of creation, that it is God's gift to us, and therefore we want to encourage people, invite them to take care of it, to cherish it, and to encourage others to do so as well.
This event may be small scale, but there are hundreds of churches around the country taking part. And with 2.4 billion Christians of various denominations around the world, the ability of local communities to make a difference is significant. And other faiths are springing into action too.
Okay, folks, if we can start. What I'm trying to find out now is how much you know about trees. Right. I need you to collect items to do with trees, and I want you to tell me about the treasures that you found.
This outing has been organised by Cameron Shehzad, sustainability lead at the Sultan Bahu Mosque in Birmingham.
When children and parents are working together, it tends to have more positive outcome. Children hold parents to account, and parents hold children to account, and they learn more, and they end up talking about these things.
Wow, what does it is this?
New iPads.
I've got a big tree.
You've got a really big
Shall we have a look?
In the Quran, we are told that we are khalifas, caretakers of the earth. So how do you think Allah would feel about us, for example, cutting down trees or not taking care of this area?
Frustrated.
I think that's very true. That's true.
Misbah Hussain is a regular at events like this.
Being part of Sultan Bahu Mosque really helped me. Awareness is so important, so we need to keep giving this knowledge to people, and also reminders are good for me. That's why I'm here today again. We are human beings, we are forgetful, so it's very important that we carry on doing these things for ourselves and for our kids.
Reflection on humanity's relationship with the planet continues inside the Sultan Bahu Mosque, where Cameron runs a training programme for imams, informing them about the climate and nature crises and how they might respond.
At the moment, climate change is the biggest threat facing the world. I want to go through a series of Quranic ayahs and some hadiths of the Prophet around what is it that should instill certain sparks in our mind to think, actually, how can we do things differently? The fitrah is the natural pattern. It's the natural state. And Allah is telling us, adhere to the fitrah of Allah, which He has created, all of us, including the planet, the universe. The Quran, we believe, is inherently environmental. We believe it's a book of nature. Surah Rahman, which is a chapter in the Holy Quran, tells us, enjoy the bounties that Allah has given you. But what you take with one hand, you give back with the other. I'm hoping, if I can hear from you, what you've taken from this. As influencers in our community, you have to connect with them. And I think there's such easy wins in the Quran and the Sunnah to bring people on board.
Obviously, it starts from home first, so I've got to really look at myself.
1,500 people attend prayers here each Friday, a fraction of the world's 1.9 billion Muslims. It's an opportunity to inspire behaviour change using guidance outlined in the Islamic scriptures.
What are these issues that we face? This big topic of climate change. Has Islam put a system in place for us to avoid this problem? The answer to that question is yes.
Cameron has helped build an interfaith community with a common cause, caring for the environment. Its members have created a map to help people appreciate the nature on their doorstep, and it's being launched at a local mosque.
Every single plant, every single variety of animal life on Bolsal Heath has a role to play with us, just like the different people in our communities have a role to play.
Cameron's putting so much energy into protecting the planet and bringing his congregation with him. And when you put different faiths together, well, it's another story completely, because then things really can happen. And we've seen this tonight. The faith's global reach gives them an influence unparalleled by any other public institution.
It's estimated that 85% of the world's population belongs to a faith group. And if we can mobilise that huge proportion of the world's population, then we've got some real leverage.
Bishop Olivia Graham is one of 3 bishops leading on the environment for the Anglican Church of England.
The crisis that we're in has got overconsumption right at the heart of it. And I think it is a spiritual issue. It's about looking at what our motivation is. You know, if I live like this, how will other people be able to live? We've lost our sense of connection with each other. Here is an issue which links directly to our Christian faith. And there's an issue of justice at play here, because we who live in the most prosperous, developed parts of the world are chiefly responsible for the degradation of our planetary ecosystem through our uncontrolled consumption. In the sacred writings and teachings of every single faith, this idea that God's creation is sacred and that we have a responsibility to care for it is absolutely fundamental. So I think the faiths have got an incredibly important role. Our politicians don't have any incentive really to take a long-term view. They're naturally very focused on the national interest. Faith groups transcend all of that. They cut across borders. They're able to take a much broader view and also to mobilise in a really effective way.
And faith leaders from all nations are beginning to realise this. In London, UK, some 635 bishops from 165 countries have assembled for the Lambeth Conference. This event, held once every decade, gathers together the member churches of the Anglican Communion. Today, its leader, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is also spiritual head of the Church of England, is hosting a session devoted to the environment.
This is an enormous emergency for literally billions of the world's population. So many of the bishops here are living daily with the impact of the climate emergency. Through the structures of the Anglican Communion, we are reaching to the very heart, to the very ground level of what is happening. If we stand united, we can make a transformative difference around the world.
Beyond mobilising congregations on the ground, there's a growing feeling that the bishops must influence political leaders too.
My urgent appeal to all of you ahead of these critical moments is, please do more to help. Call on world leaders to follow through on promises that have been made before and not met.
What we have been doing is making the people in our local churches and in our provinces and in our dioceses conscious of the fact that we have a climate change issue. But now I have also learned that we need to do some work simultaneously. Talk to our governments and ask them, you sign on to a protocol? How is it going? How is our country responding to what we signed on to? So I think faith-based organization and their leadership, we can really do more.
Today sees the launch of the Anglican Communion Forest, a global initiative to encourage congregations to protect and restore nature. The bishops are hoping this will have significant impact.
The vision is for the initiative to be woven into the spiritual and liturgical life of the churches that you come from, helping people to connect their faith with caring for God's creation.
But outside the conference, a group of protesters feel the church simply isn't doing enough. This vigil has been organised by the Young Christian Climate Network.
We want to see the church really taking a stand. We just feel that the level of action doesn't match with the urgency of the problem.
For some reason, the Church of England thinks that it can continue to invest in fossil fuel extraction and influence the extractors to meet climate crisis requirements.
Globally, faith groups account for a third of all those divesting from fossil fuels. But while the Church of England's national investing bodies have divested millions of dollars, campaigners say they still have over 50 million invested in Shell, Total Energies and ExxonMobil. The Church has said it will divest if these companies don't commit to reaching net zero by 2050. But a growing number of the faithful want more, including the team at Christian climate charity Operation Noah.
We're still, as a church, profiting from these investments. Their argument is they have to have so much money at the table to have a voice. But frankly, I don't want to profit from oil and gas companies.
What we hope to achieve is to say, look, as fellow Christians, we're telling you that this is wrong, and it's not too late to step away, to take away that faith gilding that you're giving these companies and legitimizing their work and their destruction.
Whether or not the Church of England's governing bodies do divest from polluting companies remains to be seen. But if so, they will be on trend. Over half the Church of England's dioceses, which are self-governing districts, have committed to divesting, as have other denominations elsewhere. And the Church's commitment to net zero buildings and travel by 2030 is a sign that things are changing.
It's an incredibly ambitious target, and there's an awful lot to do. But in a sense, you've got to have the ambitious target, you've got to have a realistic plan to get there, and you've got to commit the resources. And now we just work like crazy to make it happen.
Local international actions like this will make a substantial difference. But some want to bring about more systemic global change by looking at how the huge capital assets owned and managed by faiths across the world can be used for the greater good. There's a meeting about to start inside here with representatives of different religions and the world of finance. And the subject of discussion is green investment.
Faith communities are already organized as communities, and communities of conscience who understand that money should not be the center of life. So we are already building on a very good foundation when we want to try and build a sustainable society.
This meeting's been organised by Faith Invest, a not-for-profit network of religious groups and faith-based institutional investors. It was founded in 2019 by Martin Palmer, who led the death knell service I attended at the beginning of my journey.
You can go to the Bible, you can go to the Quran, you can go to the Bhagavad Gita, you can go to the Tao Te Ching, and there are the values and the mission which should be driving everything the faith does. So we build an investment program that is driven by faith. You don't just invest willy-nilly and then use the money to do good things, which has tended to be the habit of the last 100 years. You move that money so that the money that you earn is supporting the things you would want to see happening anyway. Faith, consistent investing. And that's opened the floodgates.
Well, I come at it from a purely capitalist perspective.
Dave Zellner is chair of Faith Invest's Board of Trustees. He manages investments for Wespath, the asset management arm of the United Methodist Church in the US.
Those are the things that are going to be transformative.
The work you're doing is so potentially transformative, and I just wondered, what is the ultimate sort of end goal, really?
I think the end goal is to change the world, is to make the world a better place. There's a lot of money in the faith community that wants to align with this goal to get to a net zero economy.
Wespath's assets total $25 billion. Even this amount is small compared to other faith-owned funds.
I estimate that we are in touch with something in the region of $3 to $4 trillion worth of investments. Add to that, the percentage of believers who are investors is very high. We're getting close to 40 to 50% of the capital market could be directly or indirectly influenced by what the faiths say is the right use of money. That's the scale.
And the wealth of faith groups isn't limited to investments. It's estimated they own nearly 1/10 of the world's habitable land and run or help to run 1/3 of its medical facilities and universities and half its schools. The potential for systemic change is staggering, especially when spiritual leaders get on board.
Che tipo di mondo desideriamo trasmettere a coloro che verranno dopo di noi?
In 2015, the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, published an encyclical called Laudato Si'. In it, he lays out the scientific evidence of the harm humanity is causing Earth and calls on all people, not just the world's 1.3 billion Catholics, to place caring for it at the centre of their lives.
Prendiamoci cura della nostra madre terra. Inauguriamo uno stile di vita e una società finalmente ecosostenibili.
Laudato Si' is a radical document, calling for a dialogue between faith and science and espousing a circular, regenerative economy to help create a sustainable, just world in which everyone's needs are met. In the years since its release, Pope Francis has strengthened his call, including the need for divestment in order to bring about change. It's a message that's been supported by both the faithful and spiritual leaders worldwide.
Earth is our common mother. Why would we dishonor these gifts from our Creator?
And this growing alliance was in evidence in October 2021, when 40 faith leaders, working alongside scientists, signed a document calling on governments worldwide to act.
Together, faith and science can transform fear in hope, anxiety in confidence, inaction into action.
And some religious communities have been putting care for our common home at the centre of their mission for a long time. Sister Colette Kane runs the Ecology and Retreat Centre at Antarctic, a Catholic convent for Dominican nuns on the east coast of Ireland.
We're trying to teach earth literacy, the story that we grew up with, that the human was at the top of the created order. It's no longer sustainable. And in one way, we humans have to relearn how to live within our common home.
This earth literacy encompasses the whole human journey as a way of understanding our place in the universe.
We call this the cosmic garden. There are little pebbles along the spiral, and these denote certain stages of evolution from the time of the Big Bang, 13.7 billion years ago.
Where does humanity emerge?
Well, now, that's interesting that you go straight for humanity.
It is, isn't it? A good point. Very good point.
Actually, at the very end. So we are very recently arrived.
Walking this spiral of creation is a powerful reminder of just how quickly we've caused our planet to change.
We come to the Industrial Revolution. Sadly, just within the last 200 years, we are despoiling everything that has taken 13 billion years to come.
And number 30, what does that signify?
It's the image of Earth from space. Other generations haven't known that, you know, so what does that mean for us and how can we protect her?
I wasn't expecting such a cosmological discussion in a convent, but this order embraces science and the knowledge and insights it brings.
We try and have that dialogue between religion and science, between our biblical stories and the revelations of contemporary science, the biologists, the geologists, the physicists.
By focusing on the universe, the sisters are hoping to change hearts and minds here on Earth.
Consume our way to happiness is the mantra of our times, and it's very difficult to break that, and economic growth is the measure of everything, and yet it's not. We have to change the narrative. But if enough of us do it, Amanda, if we get a critical mass, that critical mass might shift that change in consciousness.
If we're to get through this environmental crisis, then we have to come together. And the Faiths have an amazing ability to convene people around a common cause.
And as I've seen across this series, that common cause is fostering other collaborations too. People are using new strategies to put pressure on outdated political and economic systems. Lawyers and activists, financiers and green tech pioneers, representatives of faiths from across the world. While the extent of the climate and nature crisis is growing, so too is the impact of the alliances which are encouraging, inspiring, or even forcing action.
Because people are realising that there is no common cause greater than protecting life on Earth.